Welcome back. This week we're going to dive into something that I love talking about. I wrote about recently in my newsletter, and that is accomplishing financial freedom, specifically for those in the 45 to 55 range. You're probably a high income earner, and if you're a doctor, you're tired of being on call. If you're a lawyer, you're tired of the long hours. Or maybe you're a consultant, or whatever the situation may be. You've probably accomplished significant savings, but you still had significant expenses. I want to hit on a couple ideas to incorporate into your life to better accomplish financial freedom quicker than you think, where you don't have to suffer through a job you hate until you hit retirement. So I'm going to hit on these quickly, give some client stories along the way, and we'll go from there. First one is obviously cash and having that liquidity. Depending on your financial situation, if your spouse works, any number of variables, having anywhere from a couple months to a couple years worth of income is highly advisable. That also depends on what you'd be stepping into, if you've already received inheritance, health insurance, any number of things like that. So depending on your cost and your future income, really looking at modeling out that cash flow and your needs there. Step two would be audit your lifestyle. What I mean by that is look at the expenses and the value those bring to your life. So if you're spending $50,000 a super nice vacation every year as a way to treat yourself from a job that you don't enjoy, maybe once you totally redo and restructure your life and expenses, that vacation really only needs to be 10 to 20,000. Maybe it's a couple smaller ones, but really going through, especially the big expenses, and looking at, are they necessary? Can these be tweaked? And so you get a much better understanding of what your expenses actually are. Re-engineer your work. I've seen this a lot for attorneys as well as doctors, that maybe they hate being on call or they hate the long hours of being an attorney. They don't want to give up work altogether, but instead of making 6, 7, 800,000, in reality, they're good making 200 to 250 or whatever the number is once they really look at their lifestyle and determine, is all of this necessary? It could mean relocating houses, but not necessarily. Obviously, kids' education is a big one. So you got to really take a look at your lifestyle and what's important to you. And sometimes people are good at doing that early in life, but as their income rises, oftentimes that drops off. Design a tax efficient income stack. What I mean there is just really looking at your income sources from investments. And so that's where if you're super aggressive in your taxable account, just looking at and making sure that you have the cash and the stable assets to meet your needs for whatever time period you're looking at there. Map out a number of years from a tax plan. This is especially important as you near retirement, to do things like Roth conversions, donor advised funds, all the normal tax strategies depending on age, time frame, what we're looking to accomplish, how much income you would still have. Along those lines, separating freedom capital from growth capital. What I mean by that is that's just a fancy way of saying a barbell approach, where you have your stable conservative assets to meet consumption and living expenses, and then you've got your long-term assets. All right, outsourcing complexity. So huge fan of this. I try to make things very simple when possible. Delegating taxes, as estate documents, insurance, you can delegate almost anything in your life work-wise. And so really just looking at what is your time worth, and is this activity worth the 1 to 2 hours or whatever the time frame it takes. And so that's part of that, auditing your lifestyle. Systematize health. This is a big one. We hit on a lot of the financial stuff, but from a health standpoint, oftentimes this is a catalyst. Sometimes people have health scares later in life, midlife, that cause them to reevaluate things. Focusing more on your health with that additional free time is almost always a good idea and will pay long-term dividends. I made everything else that you can, and define that enough number. I know everybody's number is different. My number is different than yours, but just having a clear understanding of how much is enough. That could be 50, 100 million, or it could be 5 million. But a lot of that depends on inheritance, your work, if you're a business owner, you name it. But I think once you really take a look at your lifestyle and consumption needs, then you can start to work backwards and engineer a life that is more enjoyable than having to spend all your time at the office or on call or whatever it may be. So really just wanted to hit on something that I've written about extensively. I love talking about it. So if you're in this bucket, feel free to subscribe to the newsletter. Otherwise, appreciate you watching, and hopefully you watch the next video. Thanks.